Hmm. Well, hello, creatives, community, kind folks out there. Welcome to Third Pillar Thursday. This week we are talking about humans in the tabletop RPG community. Yes, humans themselves, humans in our fantasy realms, in our far future, in our modern settings, and everything in between. And today is a day that I hold special to my heart, and it's Third Pillar Thursdays. What is Third Pillar? Well, there are three pillars, generally three pillars of tabletop role playing. There is the combat pillar where we get to draw our swords, pull out our laser blasters, and just wreck shop. And then we have our social pillar where we like to talk and convince and deceive and entertain. Uh, NPCs in our world. And then there's the third pillar of exploration, which I take to meaning not just exploring the environment, but using it and having it be an additional part of the role-playing experience in terms of having things both natural and man-made affect the world, not just narratively, but mechanically as well. So what does this have to do with humans in our talks? Well, for the most part, I tend to have a theme, but I don't like to write too many notes down or foreshadow because the whole point is that we all interact. But I do have a couple of things that are on my mind about using humans in the third pillar of gaming. Now, the three that I have so far in my mind, just generally accepted, is that human beings accidentally create lots of hazards in the environment just by their sheer numbers, by their essentially their existence and needing to use the environment. Because although we are adaptable skill wise and we can adapt the way we live into many regions on Earth, and then, of course, fantasy realms and things like that. We do a lot of things by accident, and those accidental problems can create lots of hazards. And Rickard says, a side note, I have always felt that the three pillars doesn't really cover everything and should be worded slightly differently. Well, I didn't actually come up with the three pillars. I think there's a foreword in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons that talks about three pillars of gaming. So I actually just stole it from that rather than made it up myself. But I suppose you could shoehorn other tabletop RPG elements into one of those three pillars. So I don't know. Maybe we'd have to come up with our own like 18 pillars or something like that. But anyway. So humans create lots of things by accident, just by their sheer existence, just simply by surviving, whether they know it or not. Some things are created by accident. Human beings create plenty of environmental hazard and create environmental hazards. Maybe that's the wrong way to say it because it sounds like an environmentalist, which is why I consider myself to be the self-appointed third pillar-ist. So human beings create obstacles on purpose as well. For this, the most notable thing you can think of is a wall, a castle wall, defensive wall. They create obstacles on purpose for various reasons, whether it's for defense or survival, or when they're traveling, or what have you. Just being industrialized, as humanity becomes far more industrialized, they create things on purpose for the sole purpose of keeping them protected and keeping society moving along, like homes, like docks, like boats, things. And lastly, human beings themselves are the obstacle. Get them in big giant groups and they become their own problem in and amongst themselves, especially for the player characters, if not for themselves. The classic open bazaar, the open marketplace, has been used plenty of times, no matter the time, the era, as a great place to create obstacles and such for your player characters. So Let's go to the first two because I think we can quickly pass through them, and then just go into human beings as the obstacles, the as the third pillar, as it were, of exploration itself. So, accidental problems, accidental hazards, and obstacles and things in the way. Well, human beings creating them by accident. We can think of accidental things in terms of, for large scale and small scale. Okay, so larger scale, we can think of like strip mining and forest fires and things where humanity on the whole, on the large scale, is trying to do like a major works, right? Diverting a river, removing removing acres and acres or even miles of tree line, basically shifting the environment to what they want, uh, digging tunnels, constructing bridges, those kind of things, especially construction sites of any type, can have accidents happen where humanity is going along, you know, thick snowy mountain pass, and they create an avalanche. Someone takes a cigarette and throws it out in the woods. They create a forest fire. There a lot of these things can happen about by accident, and you could foreshadow this as a game master if you really want to throw in another hazard and you're like kind of stuck for an idea. For example, uh, forest fires can happen, of course, by lightning and some form of spontaneous combustion. But again, those things can happen as well by accident. Now, Rickard says man-made avalanches to control the damage it causes. That's another thing as well. Humanity wants to survive, so I use a lot of my air quotes, but the air quote accident might actually be on purpose for the. But as far as the player characters are concerned, it's like, oh, we didn't want this to happen at this very moment. For example, causing avalanches so that at least they can predict the damage caused by a predicted or activated avalanche, as opposed to having an avalanche happen at some random moment that could harm visitors or the community and whatnot. The idea of having a dam that holds a river and controlling the floodwaters that come through it. Sometimes they control the flow of water that comes through, simply to control how much water is being flowing downriver from the dam and how much water is being held back from above. There's also the idea of setting explosives when doing mining, right? Sure, there are plenty of times where accidents has probably happened in the past, but now as technology and the act of doing it far more often, we know where to place explosives and placing them along the sides of cliff sides or what have you to explode rock to get to something deeper, whether it's digging a hole down in the ground or doing it strip mining wise. There's also the idea of destroying buildings. Sometimes buildings they caught on fire, they're old, they're decrepit, they're in the way, and so you set explosives or someone comes along and hacks out pieces of the wood or the foundation, and then they go about, maybe they get a team of horses or something and strap some ropes up to the second or third story windows or parts the bottom of the foundation or what have you, and pull the building down. Maybe they're going to reuse or repurpose pieces of the building or what have you. And now, mind you, a lot of these accidental, and again, accidental as far as player characters are concerned, some of these accidental hazards, again, can be caused by not just, hey, we need to survive and we need to move these things or destroy these things, but they could be from so many other reasons, by decree, by maybe it was destined to be a certain way, or there was a calling from a divine being. Maybe it's because of preparation for war. There are plenty of times where humanity has knocked down their own bridges to defend themselves against a foreign invader. They don't want to knock down the bridge, but they have to make it as difficult as possible for the enemy, maybe to bring siege weapons, or once again the goblinoid horde to cross the major crevices and whatnot. So those are issues as well. Also, uh, just just simply by not having a lot of resources, humanity will do things to destroy areas. They could sink half a dozen ships in the bay to make it hazardous for other ships to land in a safe area or against their docks or beaches or something. I mean, human beings can set fire to their own homes and run for run for cover so that at least they can destroy their fields and crops and buildings so that the enemy can't take advantage of those. There's also the idea of war in war that's been done plenty of times where the enemy comes through an area and then when they leave, they burn everything to the ground. They destroy everything so that their enemies cannot take advantage of the homes or the food or safety of the location. Rickard says, the Witcher Gwent story. Okay, The Witcher Gwent a story game made a plot point of the antagonist convincing a king to trigger some avalanches to make sure that snow didn't build up, just as you happen to pass, right? I mean, yeah. Now, some nefarious person could say, "Oh no, we're just doing it for safety," knowing in their head that the timing is perfectly arranged to affect the player characters on their way. You know what I mean? Or maybe the player characters have to get through a mountain pass by a certain time period, or the community will set off the avalanches maybe by some measured time, like an equinox or 3 days hence, or when the full moon rises in the sky or something of that nature. Charlie Square says that is typically the complaint of a bad dryad. Yeah. Yes, like, wait a minute, it's supposed to happen by nature. Like, wait, you're taking down my trees. What are you doing? Rickard says forest fires are also used to clear out undesired vegetation. Yes, humanity has what is it called? Slash and burn. But yes, that's been done plenty of times on purpose because the cleared vegetation actually helps increase the soil the nutritional value of the soil, and that slash and burn of one portion while the other portion grows, and they do that in succession. It is a very common thing and has actually helped humanity out quite a bit. We know that natural forest fires and our ability to stop them, the greater our ability to stop them, the more we are encouraging those forest fires to happen. So yeah, we're doing it ourselves. Yeah, Charlie says the humans are destroying my precious nature. Yeah, exactly. JP says a scorched earth policy is the most pragmatic tactic. Too bad for all non-combatants. Yeah, that's a thing. And you could let's say you would okay, war doesn't necessarily have to be a thing, but war and battle and skirmishes are a part of our tabletop RPG experience. Let's be honest, and incorporating the things that happen when war is not happening could really immerse your players in what's going on. Meaning, like JP says, the scorched earth policies, the fey creatures that live in the wild when the human beings are causing the avalanches, burning down the forests, causing landslides and diverting rivers or poisoning, water systems or whatnot, or wells or what have you. I mean, those are very much tactics in war before the shooting and the fighting and the sword drawing and the lancers come in. It is, destruction of resources, destruction of pathways to and from certain locations, creating those hazards as well. So you could really foreshadow or immerse the players in things, the elements that make up war and battle that aren't necessarily about the fighting, but the players' characters might be thinking like, "Ooh, maybe we shouldn't like destroy the grain and food for the winter, the coming winter or something." But the king might say, "Hey, listen, hey, we're I'm sending out the paladin's order to destroy all that stuff because the enemy's going to steal it and they're going to survive and we won't. So yeah, we might have to suffer a little bit, but we need to destroy the our food reserves. Ricker says, unless you're fighting the Mongols, they care not for your scorching of the earth. Yeah. Now, of course, the enemy depends on what the enemy wants. Does the enemy want territory? Are they trying to capture? They're trying to capture the women so they could breed. Are they doing it out of by some divine decree that they must, wipe the earth of their enemy? I mean, there's so many different motivations, and then within, let's say, the greater motivation of an enemy horde or what have you, there's of course the individuals in that group. Maybe someone just wants to fight because they're loyal to the crown, and the soldier next to them and just wants to fight because they're a fifth generation yeoman or mercenary or something, and they just want to prove to their family that they have what it takes or something. And somebody else is just like, I'm just scared, and I could either be a slave or imprisoned, or someone else is a criminal. It's like, look, I volunteered because my ass don't want to be, in a dungeon somewhere or getting tortured or what have you. So I mean, there are those things as well. Now, when I brought up accidental, there are also, let's flow into purposefully constructed obstacles, hazards, traps, those kind of things. Because for me, third pillar gaming are all about traps, puzzles, layers, obstacles, all those things combined together, and then using that as a backdrop for the game. For example, when preparing for war and battle, they will construct walls and moats and dig ditches and pits, and so humanity will bring with them their own traps and hazards so that they can stop the enemy. In modern day, we have trench warfare and minefields. In the past, we had moats and pits and all kinds of things. Instead of a pit trap in a dungeon, maybe they construct 20 pit traps around the city walls, hoping that horses and the other people would fall into them, or take a ravine and carve out that ravine and fill it with oil and light it on fire. I mean, those are things that would happen as well to defend themselves, and they could either be something that is being prepared by humanity. It could happen at the moment that the PCs are involved in a war, or it could be remnants of an ancient war, and those are things left over. Along with those dozens of pits, there could be undead stuck down in those pits, and the humanoid adventurers walking along might uncover those moats and pits that are full of undead that are reaching their hands up at the players after they awaken them or something. There's so many other things. I mean, catapults and trebuchets and things of that nature, launching things through the air could also be part of war, although maybe we're flowing too far into war, so maybe I might get away from that. But yes, giant size walls that are 50 feet tall, temporary walls made of just lashed together logs and such, just made into spikes temporarily, just to keep cavalry away from them. Rickard says, turning this around a bit, humans have always explored the unknown for a variety of reasons, trying to figure out how to make it work for them. If they find a dangerous area, research will happen on how to either neutralize it, or to make use of the land, or how to weaponize it. I both agree with you in the sense of, let's take the simple idea of a well or a volcanic region or something. When humanity spread around the world and you didn't live in a jungle area, we were like, oh, what's the jungle like? What's the desert like? And a lot of that was so dangerous to us. We either, like you said, we want to neutralize the danger of it, whether there are plague rats or diseases or volcanic eruptions or something, or how to weaponize it, right? It's going to be a long time before we're able to to stop a volcanic eruption, but we can definitely weaponize it and cause the lava to flow in a particular manner if we prepare ourselves. And the same goes for floodwaters and tornadoes and hurricanes and things of that nature. We know how to defend ourselves against it and everything. No, good morning to you too, sir. There, Fat Ninja DM. Where we care about our mouth hole and our rectal area. So the Pompeii was an inside job. You're so wrong there. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Somebody caused that. And here I was having breakfast. No, but again, like you're saying, bringing it back around, there could be a natural element, and humans are just trying to cultivate it. Windmills are a perfect example of cultivating high winds. So the fact that windmills exist means that there are windy areas, which means you could both add wind as an obstacle in your game. Maybe it's very difficult to use ranged weapons or physical things or attacks and whatnot because it's the windy season and there are windmills. Maybe the players can, or the enemy can climb up into the windmills and the windmill blades are spinning around. So that could be a hazard as well. So you could not only have a tower and have height advantages, maybe the archer who's trying to shoot their arrows in the high winds might try to alleviate the disadvantage of shooting through high winds to get the advantage of getting the high point in the windmill. But the windmill itself spinning with the blades, which is also probably being used to churn a mill to for grains and things of that nature, could also be a location for any number of adventures. So an example, so what I'm saying is that humanity itself, the things that they construct, constructing a boat means that there are rivers or seas or lakes for them to navigate, and the type of boat will tell you what kind of hazards there are in that region. And of course, creating docks are a reason for getting the ships to shore, which means that the docks are there for a reason. Maybe the ships, you can't bring the boats up to a sandy ocean or a rocky shore, so we need docks. And the length of those docks might have to do with the hazards of getting the ship to shore in the first place. Maybe it's just extremely rocky and hazardous, and maybe the waves crash against the seaside city and whatnot. And so maybe they're able to pull the docks in. Maybe the docks are just very extremely long. So anything like that could happen. And humanity can create things to allow them to, the best way for them to survive, instead of just running around with their heads cut off as simple villagers and we don't know what we're doing. Tesla Ranger says, in the Highlander universe, Pompeii was caused by two immortals fighting on holy ground, so you could say it was humans' fault. I love that. I didn't know that from the Highlander universe, Highlander series, but that's kind of cool. That's because there was the rule about no Highlanders can fight on holy ground. I like that. That's a good that would be a very cool twist on how wild maybe nature becomes caused by humanity. So we don't have to follow science at all. It could be that thunderstorms and brutal winters and blazing heat from the summer, thunderstorms and torrential rains and waves, and all those kind of things could be caused because some kind of decree by the gods or outer planar beings, or maybe they're like titanic beings or gods or demigods doing battle or having conflict with each other. And that's the reason why. How many times as a kid have we been told that thunderstorms are, the gods bowling, or Thor's throwing his hammer or something? You could actually have that be a real thing in your world, where the players and the people look up in the sky and they see, when the lightning flashes, they see images of the gods throwing bolts of lightning at each other or fighting some kind of titanic evil or whatnot, holding it off. And they're clashing or wrestling or firing bolts of lightning out of their fingers or eyes, or pulling a yet one more lightning bolt javelin, and maybe the javelin strikes the earth, and I don't know, another guy tries to tackle them to stop it from happening, but the lightning bolt strikes a forest and starts a fire, and you could flavor your world that way as well. And if the humanity maybe they didn't appease the gods the correct way during a certain season, and this happened, or they did something on consecrated ground that they shouldn't have. Maybe a war took place, like the Pompeii idea with the Highlanders fighting on holy ground. Maybe there was a war that took place on holy ground, and the gods were like, oh really, we're going to visit you some harm coming next season. Hey, I'm the god of fire. Wait till summertime. Let's see what happens. So that's a possibility as well. So yes, human beings can create their own hazards. Now, those hazards may not be hazardous to them, but it might be hazardous to you. A drawbridge is a perfect example of a hazard to you, and it's not hazardous to them. Hey, we put the drawbridge down so we can go back into the city walls, into the castle, and we don't need to have the drawbridge down anymore. Let's pull it up. And the humans that are trying to maybe jump on a drawbridge pulled up by an emergency, there's a hazard. There's a giant moat in the way of the player characters getting over to the castle, so they're going to have to figure out how to navigate that. And the people that live inside, it's no problem for them. It's perfectly defensible. So yes, humans can create those hazards for themselves. Now, in an arcane-filled world with floating islands and rope bridges connecting them all, and living in trees that are miles tall, living in the branches and such, is also a trope that we like to incorporate into our worlds. The classic high elven or woodland elven city that's built amongst the trees, hundreds of feet, even thousands of feet into the air. The humans that visit this place are like, whoa, I do not want to fall over the edge. But the beings that live there are just like, this is just a regular day. Let's go get some food, or I'm going to go to my mom's house, and they just walk along these rope bridges and catwalks and platforms that are in and amongst the trees themselves. The going back to the dryad that's all pissed off, they could have a whole fae community that has just interwoven the branches and living amongst them, but let a fight break out. And again, me making fun of the shove maneuver is stupid, because they just get back up on their own, shoving people off of platforms to fall down onto platforms that are 10 feet, 30 feet, 60 feet, 100 feet below them could also be a great way to, although might be quite difficult in a theater of the mind setting, would be a great way to have some hazards that are happening there, where if you're on the rope bridge, there's not too many places for you to run. So maybe you have some disadvantage or some kind of a difficulty in dodging attacks in the narrow bridge areas, but it allows you to escape from one place to another. Maybe someone starts a fire, or someone tries to ruin the braces so that some of the platforms fall down. At the same time, people are flinging lightning bolts at each other, causing sabotage. Charlie Square says, sabotage the floating island to make it fall. Ooh, it destroys the inhabitants, but of course it also hits the ground with maybe unintended consequences. Yeah, hell yeah. Sabotage, I think, is undersold in RPGs, yet every player character loves to sabotage something. If it's not explosives and fire, it's like making something fall over. And sabotaging a floating island, oh man. Could you imagine taking down one of those like sci-fi floating cities in the clouds and taking out the anti-gravity or a couple of the engines or something like that, and just having it fall? That would be kind of cool, man. I mean, dangerous, and of course killing of a minimum of thousands, if not tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands, but whatever. Yeah. JP says the shove maneuver is directly proportional to your proximity to bottomless pits. Yeah, it sure is. Oh yeah, it is. It sure is. We need a t-shirt on that. Yeah. The ratio of bottomless pits versus shove maneuvers. But of course, why not? Yeah, one character is like dishing out 100 points of damage per hit and seems like the damage dealer, but if your PC, who can only do not even half that, can start kicking people over the edge of bottomless pits, well, who's more effective, right? Yeah, if it takes me 3 hits to kill a creature and you just one to have them trip over themselves and fall over the edge of a bridge or something, I mean, one's might be more effective than another in that particular situation. So, and also, hit points don't matter if you knock someone over a ledge and they have to spend, I don't know, couple of rounds climbing their way back up to get their revenge on you. So if you kick them off of a catwalk and they fall to a catwalk that's 100 feet below, and then now they have to run over to find some ladders or stairs, or maybe there's elevated moving platforms that are moving up and down on their own, or maybe the player characters can move a pulley or pull a rope that moves them up or down, and that could create another dynamic portion in your world. Maybe there are platforms to move goods and large amounts of people or merchandise or something, maybe into trees or from ships up into over the castle walls or whatnot, or anything. And maybe those platforms could even be moving up and down, and there could also be a spindle, so they could have these long arms that you can put tons of material on them. So not only do they lift up and down, but the spindle's like a mechanical tree that lifts the things up, spins them around, and drops them somewhere else, maybe over a castle wall or something, while the other arm, which is empty now, spins over to the ships that lowers down into the center of the ship so they can load some more merchandise. So again, those are things that those could be not intentional hazards, but they could very well be hazards that you can use in your own game, where maybe a PC sneaks up on it and tries to cut the ropes to make all the 5 tons of food or gold or whatever fall on someone's head. Maybe someone had, of course, you got to have a sword fight or even a martial arts fight, like on a moving platform that's rising in the air. We've seen that plenty of times where cargo ships in modern day, maybe they have stolen cars inside of them or a nuclear device or something, and someone's trying to have a gunfight, and then of course they drop their guns or they run out of bullets. So now they start having a martial arts fight. Someone pulls a knife. To me, that kind of stuff is exciting, and you could very easily play that with just using the rules that are already available for traps and your environment and layers and things like that, and just have them, completely dynamic. Each round you're raising another 30 feet in the air, and oh, by the way, you're also coming each round, you're getting that much closer to, I don't know, the enemy's walls or something, as the thing lifts up and moves you towards the enemy. So maybe not only are you getting higher in the air, but you're also getting closer to enemy weapon fire. Maybe they're throwing javelins or shooting you with crossbows or something, and you're trying to take cover behind whatever they've loaded onto the platforms. And of course, I'm going off on a tangent because I'm like, I'm going to use this for a game. Okay, so yes, accidental things, purposefully created things that create hazards for other people, but we also have human beings themselves as a problem. Human beings can be their own issue. Oh, before I go into that, you can very easily pick whatever role-playing game it is. Of course, 5th edition, we tend to default to that just because it's the world's most popular role-playing game, but there are plenty of others. So look into your rule books, find your traps, find those hazards, find the layers or whatever they are, and just reskin them. For example, we already know what a pit trap is, right? Hey, it's a big hole dug in the ground. It's covered with something. Someone comes along, accidentally falls into the pit trap. You can throw some things at the bottom of the pit trap, some spikes, maybe some poison spikes, maybe an animal, whatever. Okay. Pits are not just holes in the ground. A pit could be created accidentally or on the fly. For example, if you are you are elevated accidentally falling over the edge of something into something else is technically a pit. For example, you could have a forge and they are taking bits and bits of pieces of metal and there's flames coming up, or maybe even lava. And the closer you get to the edge, the greater chance you have of falling into, quote unquote, the pit of molten metal in the dwarven forge, right? That is a pit. So you can have mobile pits that go around. Maybe it's a machine that is a recycling machine and it churns up wood, or it is a mill. We were talking about the windmill, and maybe there's a mill and everything that's churned up in the mill dumps into a hopper of some sort that continues to grind it up so that the people have flour or grains or something like that. And that very well in that mill could be a pit. Now, there's other traps. I mean, there's collapsing ceilings and the classic Indiana Jones, the ball rolling down the rolling down the hill, or rolling down the cavern after Indiana Jones, who runs for it, right? Those are things that can happen as well. Instead of a rolling ball, maybe the bell tower collapses and the bell itself, which is, I don't know, 20 feet tall, this giant bell or something, starts rolling down the streets from the highest point where the bell tower is located, and it could be rolling down the street after the player characters. You can have a collapsing ceiling. A collapsing ceiling doesn't have to be underground. It could be in an abandoned building, or it could be a construction site or something like that. It could be a collapsing ceiling trap. Could be that merchandise that was loaded onto the platform that's lifting it out of the sailing ship before the great storm comes in, and someone could cut the ropes and have it fall down on the enemy. Whether the players' characters do that or the enemy does that to the player characters. Again, you're collapsing ceiling. Again, reskin, reuse, repurpose. Just wipe away the boy, my mind just blanked on me. Wipe away the serial numbers, rename it, and just use those rules, because you have those rules in there. You have what is like tight spaces, and you have heights and all those kind of things, and dynamic things flowing in. You could have giant waves coming in that's crashing on the shore, and make a strength versus strength check, and whoever wins, the waves or you, either gets to stand or gets knocked down or pulled out to sea, or what have you, or knocked prone or slammed up against the wall or something. So you have those things. But let's go into human beings as a problem themselves. Human crowds. Some humans are so dynamic. Sometimes it's very difficult to just make them a monolith of a crowd. But you could actually human beings the obstacles themselves in very different ways. And not only can they be the obstacles, again, the environment should be used and abused. Humans can also operate as a protective measure as well. So let's take your classic people shopping in a crowded bazaar, a marketplace, whether it's ancient, an ancient era, modern town, or in the future. People are out there, they're buying groceries, they're looking for fruits and vegetables, they're buying scarves, because you always have to have the scarf. So, a PC goes by and grabs a scarf and sunglasses to hide themselves or whatever. You got to have that. Selling tapestries and whatnot, or small toys or musical instruments or what have you. Rickard says humans as a swarm. I know you're being tongue in cheek, but no, yeah, but I know you're also half being serious, and I absolutely agree with you, man. Humans as a swarm. Human crowds are defensive. They act as cover. They also are hard to move through if they're too crowded. Maybe there's a grand speaker is speaking to the crowd who's very charismatic, or there's a decree each day. The town crier comes outside and speaks to the people in the town, and the people stop and listen. Or it could be an usurper comes into town with their soldiers and orders the people to gather in the town square. Or maybe the people are listening to music and dancing and having fun, and there's a concert going on. So humans might not want to move out of your way because they're involved in something else. JP says, yeah, a swarm of humans, another good use of the shove maneuver. Yeah. Hey, they're going to shove you down or knock you down. Human beings panicking when, again, something collapses or catches on fire, or something surprises them and they run for it, whether it's a bolt of lightning strikes a building. Maybe the human, maybe someone, a wizard in the group, fires a lightning bolt at the enemy, and it makes the crowds of people run in all directions, and then they become their panicked running becomes the hazard of knocking the other people down, being the human stampede. Of course, how many we know people die, get broken bones, suffocate, get crushed, stampeded. A human stampede is a powerful thing. We've seen human stampedes after winning sporting events. They turn over cars and knock down light posts and destroy things and set fires and such. Charlie says the monster the PCs thought they snuck past. Human beings are both, the hazards of human beings are both, they notice things going on and are both oblivious to things going on. So while a big massive crowd, it might be easy to maybe use sleight of hand to pickpocket someone. Slicing someone's throat in a crowd might cause a panic when the blood starts spurting. So you have that dichotomy as well. Ricker says, speaking of sports, the losing team's hooligan crowd roaming the streets. Yeah, hey, we've seen winning teams do the same thing. Come on now. But you're right. The losing team rioting, causing problems, the city guard not knowing how to stop it because the people involved begin to, they're heated and they begin to get fueled. Charlie says the Coliseum is rigged. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, that would be hilarious. I think you could have some fun with the gladiatorial arena, and they're like, my gladiator went free agent this year. Everybody wearing colors and stuff. I think if I'm not mistaken, during the gladiatorial age, people did dress up and wear colors and root for their favorite gladiators and things like that. But yes, the people the people in the crowds could riot and be more dangerous than the gladiators themselves, who are looking around like, I thought they came here to see us kill each other, not us see them. But yeah, player characters could, and the enemy themselves could get crushed and stampeded. And again, when using the environment, it doesn't necessarily mean, because I bring up the PCs a lot, the enemy, the adversary, doesn't need to be immune to the hazards that are created. The PCs could be fighting their rival in the streets, and then a crowd of people rushes by, and the major battle that one of the PCs is having with their ancient rival that killed their family or something, they could get separated in the crowd and lose sight of each other. Again, human beings could be literally temporary hit points for each other, right? They are half cover or 3/4 cover, and someone who tries to shoot a lightning bolt or fire an arrow or swing a sword might have to cut through the human beings that are separating each other before they can actually clash again. And so, yeah, human beings could be temporary hit points between each other. Kill enough human beings and everyone runs away, and now that person is now visible and you could strike them. Of course, you have the rogue in the group, or rogue-like individuals in the group, using disguises, hiding, pretending to go with the crowd and moving with the crowd's motion so that they are unseen. It could help them out. So human crowds and human the masses of humans both, of course, act as a great method to, I'm just going to take off my helmet and pull up my cloak hood and just hide in a crowd. I'm going to move with them. Or I need to save the princess. I'm going to move against the crowd. Ooh, you're going to have to make a roll with that one. Strength check, athletics check, maybe, against whatever DC you set for the crowd. That kind of thing. Charlie Square says, a classic maneuver of a villain that is a physically weak mastermind: hostages on the go. Of course. Put enough hostages in their way and they start taking a bunch of arrow hits, right? Grabbing someone and using them as a human shield. Of course, the person's panicked. They pull a gun to them or a knife to their throat. Hey, let me go, or this innocent person dies, kind of thing. A human shield, why not? And what kind of rule do you want for a human shield? Well, make them a real shield, make them a hit point sponge, give them half cover maybe or 3/4 cover until you, hey, I want to get rid of their cover. Okay. How many hit points does a human have? I don't know. 3, 5. All right, I'm gonna kill the human being with my first arrow shot and shoot him in the shoulder, and then my second arrow shot, I'm gonna hit the bad guy. Why not? It's an option, and let those options happen. Also, with the stampeding idea, again, not only can you get moved away, the classic shove maneuver, like Rickard said, like a human stampede, right? You get shoved away from where you want to go. You can get knocked down and get knocked prone. The stampede might prevent you from then standing up. So instead of just automatically, I got knocked prone, I'm just going to stand up on my next action. No, you're not. They're going to step on your hands, step on your back. They're running for it because, I don't know, the hellhounds were released into the city square or something like that. Or an idea that I had. I never used it in the game, but then maybe there's an ancient cult of fanatics and they drink a potion, but that's not really a potion. Those are black puddings or gray oozes or something, and they drink them and have it explode out of their stomach, and it starts infecting and grabbing other people in the city and whatnot. And so everybody's running for it because the things are expanding. You could have human beings that have a ring or a medallion on them that once they, it's a one-use terrorist tactic where they turn into a hydra or a manticore or I don't know, an elemental or something, and go on a rampage. And so maybe it's difficult to stand back up, or you do a critical failure, fumble, and you drop your weapons or your items go spinning off into the distance while people are kicking everything away. So yeah, those can be hazards that you can create. I mean, hey, you need to beat a DC 15 to stand back up. Otherwise, you're going to take another, I don't know, die 6 or die 8, crushing, bludgeoning damage or something as you get stepped on yet again by the crowds and whatnot. I mean, you can create all kinds of rules for that. Have I ever made rules for that? Yes, I did, as a matter of fact, for herds in plains and grasslands for the cinematic environments. There are herds in there. So, but yeah, I mean, essentially, the human stampede is literally like a herd of animals, except they just happen to be human. Now, the human stampede might be mindless. For example, they're running for it, but they could also be focused. Again, like sports. Hooligans pissed off that their team lost. They could be motivated to hunt down what they perceive to be enemies of the state or murderers or something that needs to be killed because it's by divine decree. They're excising the infection in their city. So you could have an angry mob searching for the PCs. Now, one individual in the angry mob's probably not much, but as a group, as a collection, as a swarm, those human beings might be extremely dangerous. So sure, your 8th level human fighter can take out, a bunch of unskilled human beings with pitchforks and torches, but that human fighter could also get overrun by the simple masses of people, maybe throwing nets over them, trying to poke and prod them with pole arms that are holding them back. I mean, all kinds of things, people throwing rocks and stones at them and whatnot. I mean, you could literally create a human stampede as its own creature, and only by killing or disabling a few members of them will, the reduction of hit points is also a reduction of their capabilities. So maybe they do 3d6 damage, and then you took out another 10 hit points. Okay, now they only do like 2d6 damage, and they can also have some other residual effects: grappling, restraining, of course, being knocked prone, being incapacitated, being blinded by having tapestries thrown over your head and people trying to give you a blanket party and whatnot. So you could also have residual effects or conditions happen as well. And of course, if we're talking about an arcane society, who's to say that the 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 evil cult or something that's caused the mobs of human beings to go after the PCs, they aren't then enhanced in some way? Bless spell, maybe the human beings are temporarily given barbaric rage because they're enraged and mindless or something. They could have drunk a potion, and they are all enhanced with some kind of giant strength from drinking of the potion from the gods or whatnot, or any other kind of things that you could add into a major, massive group of people. Now, again, you have the mindless mob that's just running for it, right? They're just panicked. They're not organized. You have the organized mob that's being focused by something. Maybe they view the Dragonborn in the group as being evil, or the players are wearing the colors, or they have an accent, or they are of a racial type that is hated in this city, and they are blamed for the murders of innocent people or something. Vince, hey, what's going on there? Vince, quick greetings from me. I hope you guys are doing all right. Yes, we are. And of course, Vince, you're always welcome. I know life has taken a turn for you, but that's all right. You're always welcome here. JP says maybe swarms of people are all casters, and they are all concentrating on a higher level spell that they continually cast. Absolutely. Why not have? I'm just pulling this out my ass. 5 casters together can create a 5th level spell. And it might be a tactic to take out as many casters as possible. But hey, get 8 casters together, and someone's like, "Oh, there's a 9th caster crawling up the ladder, or trying to get together with that group. We better take them out before they cast a wish spell," right? So that's a possibility as well. So their concentration of a certain type of spell, maybe it's a defensive spell like anti-magic or dispel magic or something, or maybe collectively together it takes 8 casters to cast 1 lightning bolt, and they take you down. Oh, hey, Vince, stop it. Yeah, mana dorks, Yanawar elves, or Lanawar, probably Yanawar elves. Yeah, I hear you. Magic the Gathering, but again, correct, right? The more they get together, maybe they feel, maybe there's a council of powerful mages, and the other casters are, when they group together, they're able to, it's almost like they can hunt down the PCs, look through the spotter's eyes, and then the powerful casters can then focus their magic at the PCs. So maybe the PCs have to run away from the spotters. The spotters are like, there they go, and then they triangulate where the PCs are, and then a big meteor swarm, a bolt of lightning comes out of the sky, or a big flame just shoots down them. Boom, blast the PCs, into smithereens or something. Charlie says that xenophobia is common, but often role played only, which doesn't always do the trick for a less role play oriented player. If you have the mob come down on them, they'll really care. Exactly. And look, I'm a hippie, right? I'm big into the narrative and the role play part of it, and I'm a Mr. The rules are just a tool, and you can ignore them. But believe you me, incorporating the mechanical part of it, like you're talking about, Charlie, is sure the Dragonborn or the Drow that goes in the city, the angry mob wants to go after them, and that's a big trope, right? But if that mob is dangerous, and does the mob need to be so dangerous they can take out 20th level characters? No, of course not. That doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, a 20th level character with the wave of their hand, no matter what class, is going to easily take out a mob in moments, if not seconds, right? But your lower level characters, you're heading towards like 7th or 8th level. I think an angry mob, depending on the population density, could be pretty dangerous, if not straight up an obstacle that you really need to get away from. A character casting a spell and having concentration is going to definitely have problems concentrating when the angry mob is throwing bricks and stones in their face, right? Charlie says the mob having an interesting mechanic is fun and engaging for some players. High hit points tied to damage, collective actions, of course. And who's to say You could make up I'm going to go with Vince here. Who's to say you don't have a random table that the mob does something different, or that creative actions could then split a mob. Let me give you an example. Halfling rogue is like, I'm not taking on a mob. I'm going to run down the dark alley, and oh, what's down the alley? Oh, well, there's debris and stuff. Great. I'm going to go into a tight area so the mob has to thin out and have to fit between, I don't know, the warehouse stacked boxes or something. So maybe good tactics, like going into a narrow space, might thin out the mob. So instead of fighting the mob of 80 people, now they're only fighting 3 or 4 or 5 at a time, right? So good tactics might thin the mob out. Going the high ground, climbing up might get you away from the mob, at least temporarily, unless you go into like a scaffolding. Maybe enough people can take down some pretty heavy items, right? So player character climbs up onto a catwalk or a ledge. Mob goes and tries to knock it down. Mob sets fire to building that PCs climb into. I mean, you can have a lot of fun with a mob, whether it's directed or panicked, right? And again, they can operate both as cover and a danger. So a player character might have to choose. Do I fight my enemy head on, or do I run along with the mob to get some kind of quote unquote capital A advantage or lowercase a advantage to hide or sneak attack, or use them as meat shields, or hide what it is that I plan on doing, or what have you? I mean, all those things. And I think as a game master, it behooves us not to have fun with it. If a player character comes up with a great idea, hey, we're in the warehouse. Can I knock over some of those barrels of like oil or acid or something to stop the mob from coming after me? And I'm thinking, yeah. Or, hey, I'm going to go into the warehouse. Is there something dangerous? Do you have an inspiration point? Yeah, can I spend an inspiration to find something I can like light on fire or whatever, just something that'll get them away from me? Yeah, give me an inspiration. Yeah, of course you find something. It's a matter of fact, it's painted right on the side of it. Dangerous, do not turn over, fragile. Oh, I'm going to go for that. I'm going to knock over some warehouse boxes or whatever and have them come down so that I can, get away from the crowd. And maybe another PC is like, hey, I'm going to hide in the crowd. I'm going to use my deception or whatever to hide in the crowd and maybe sneak up on the bad guy. Well, hell yeah. But matter of fact, I'll give you capital A advantage to do it. I mean, you could have a lot of fun with it. Also, sometimes a crowd's reaction. So we have ourselves the angry mob. We have ourselves the panicked mob. But sometimes a crowd hasn't been motivated yet. And the crowd itself could be moved and swayed based on player characters and enemy actions. So, yeah, Rickard says hello to Vince. Yeah, welcome back, Vince, by the way. So, for example, let's say the people are having fun listening to a concert, or again, they are in the crowded marketplace, just minding their business, spreading gossip, kids running around, little orphan kids snatching veggies, groups of nobles talking to each other, surrounded by bodyguards, commoners selling their wares and finding about today's news. And then the PCs, Rika says, I have missed so much. Sorry for being a bit distracted. Mapping can get out. Do you make maps? It's all right. But anyway, it's possible that, how can I say this? Depending on player character or adversary actions, the mob may be moved to act in a way that can either benefit or be an antithesis to what you want. So player characters are fighting somewhere else. They turn the corner. They push their way through the crowd at the crowded marketplace. Oh, okay, yeah, please do that. I'm going to turn on Discord right now. It could be that maybe the player characters do something to anger the people in the crowd, right? And hey, big old PC pushes through the crowd, and they get the crowd gets angry, and maybe the crowd starts collecting around the strangers that are pushing through them, knocking over, the old woman that's selling bakery goods, pastries or something, and the farmers that are trying to sell grain and wheat or whatever. I mean, that's a possibility as well, where the pushing through the crowd might elicit a certain reaction, and depending on who's in the crowd, might elicit specific reactions. For example, crowd starts to move, PCs push through the crowd, punching and shoving people out the way. Nobles are surrounded by bodyguards. Bodyguards might pull their weapons and might try to strike at the PCs when the PCs pass, i.e. opportunity attack. Maybe they don't chase the PCs, but they're going to strike at them, right? It could be that the PCs create their own hazards. City guard is like, who's walking around having fun. Maybe one of the guards is trying to seduce another person that's there, talking to them, leaning on the countertop or what have you, while they're making noodles and frying fish or what have you. And PCs run through the crowd, and people start screaming, and kids are yelling, and ladies are like, get them, or they stole my stuff or whatever, with a bloody forehead. And the city guard starts going after the PCs, and the crowds are in the way of the city guard, and the city guard's trying to go after them, and they're trying to tell people to move. But maybe the mobs of people are like, we need to stop those people coming in here, those darn strangers. I hate those Dragonborn. I know I'm picking on the Dragonborn. Take it easy. But that could be a case where, no, the crowd's not a problem, but you caused the problem. So, getting to the end here, maybe getting out of these hazards is more than just dex and con and strength saves or skill uses. Maybe you get to use those charisma skills, persuasion, performance, deception, intimidation skills could get you out of being trapped or restrained or grappled by a very large mob that is trying to hold you down. For example, a very charismatic character might push through a crowd of people and says something witty, using their persuasion or performance skill. That might be an act that they're doing. It could be the idea that a certain big burly character uses their intimidation to split like parting the river, the Red Sea or something, like, get out of my way. The big barbarian with his battle axe yells at the crowd, and everyone's just like, oh, I think I better move. That's a possibility as well. Someone could deceive everyone and go and point in the other direction and go, everyone needs to run that way. There's a fire, and everyone starts panicking, whatnot. So yeah, you could use charisma and those particular skills or saves or something to move or push or get out of the way or finagle your way through a crowd that is, of course, difficult terrain to push through, as well as maybe going over their heads or something like that. Rickard says, post-it might do choose open original to see the details. Okay. I see it. It's it. No, they're, oh, sweet. I might have to hire you, sir. Oh, I like it. I'm looking at it right now. So the idea that crowds and human beings are not a problem, especially in third, as yourself appointed third pillarist, I think you can have a lot of fun with them. You can tell that even though I tend not to think about these things, it's always on my mind. It's like it's not just my specialty, but it's the thing that really drives me a lot. And it's because I had a lot of fun with it when I was much younger in my role-playing experience. And so, yeah, it's just the kind of thing that's like, oh, we can have some fun with this, hell, in a huge crowd, PCs could get pickpocketed all the time and stuff. So yeah, that's a thing as well. But anyway, guys, again, here on the side, like, share, subscribe, give a thumbs up, whatever have you. Thank you very much. There's some videos here you might want to take a look at. Also, again, my salutation, please don't measure your loves. Don't measure your loves by your hates. We can all have our favorite IP, our favorite thing, books, movies, anything in our role-playing game experience, as well as the larger world. but there's no reason why we need to have an equal and opposite hate for something else. I think we're not a on off yes no society. We are human beings. We're complex. We have nuance. We can both love something and it's terrible. We can both dislike something and it's awesome. And we don't need to measure our existence by whether someone else equally loves or hates the thing that we have. So again, guys, everyone, I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Future Friday, and we will talk about humans in the far future, humans as a group, grouping as crowds and all that kind of stuff. So everyone have a great day. I will see thee later. See ya. Bye.